maintained, and what happened when it broke down. In short, there are a plethora of books explaining how a minority died under Nazism, but there are very few that explain how the majority lived. Happily, there are a number of factors that strongly encourage an examination of the social history of wartime Berlin. Historiography has been shifting in this direction in recent years, as historians look beyond the bare facts to discern popular reactions to events. Where once grand strategy and high politics were the dominant themes of history, nowadays much more humble everyday subjects and sources begin to proliferate. One might call this process the democratization of history, marking as it does the shift away from the great and the good in favour of the view from below. This trend is also illustrated by the many published memoirs and diaries that now seem to be ubiquitous in the bookshops. The most urgent argument in favour of this approach, however, is that this is the final opportunity we have to allow those that experience the war directly to tell their stories. Many of the voices that I have used in this book are from published sources, but I also wanted to make use of the personal accounts of ordinary Berliners, which have never been recorded for posterity. To this end, I undertook a programme of interviews in the German capital, in which I crisscrossed the city to meet people for whom Berlin at war forms part of their personal story. Yet, as time marches on, this spring saw the 65th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, those that experienced the war, even as adolescents, are now well into their 70s. Sadly, some of those elderly Berliners whom I interviewed have passed away in the interim. Many of them are still in rude health, a few quite astonishingly sprightly, but there are some, I fear, that will not see the publication of a German edition. The generation that experienced the war at first hand is gradually slipping away, and, as the African saying runs, when an old man dies, a library burns to the ground. Over coffee and cake, in gemütlich surroundings, I would often hear the most hair-raising tales of personal pain, loss and survival. Occasionally there were tears, as long-suppressed memories were brought to light once again. Though it was never demanded or requested, I felt obliged to render such contributions anonymous, out of respect for the privacy of those who I interviewed and whose unpublished memoirs and diaries I have quoted. Needless to say, I gleaned far more material in this process than I could ever sensibly use in the writing of this book. Much of it was also very subjective, unverifiable, occasionally misremembered or accompanied by the whiff of self-exculpation. But in spite of those caveats, the experience demonstrated to me that eyewitness testimony has a vital role to play in history. Personal accounts and anecdotes can bring a fresh perspective, colour, or context to even the most hackneyed and well-trodden narrative. Some purists wax rather sanctimonious about this personalisation of history, which they perceive as the elevation of the personal above the political and empirical. But I would suggest that if it is done correctly and responsibly, then this personal approach not only has a role to play, it is an essential ingredient of the historian's art of bringing the past to life. Of course, other primary sources are readily available. There is a wealth of published memoirs, ranging from the well-known works of Missy Vasilchikov or William Shirer to the vast number of obscure volumes never translated into English. Countless unpublished diaries kept by ordinary Berliners during the war were subsequently bequeathed to relatives or donated to the archives. It is this mass of primary material that has been my constant companion in writing this book. Here, too, I've been able to incorporate only a fraction of those voices into my narrative, but their words have shaped my understanding of the subject. Yet even with the best possible research and the richest raw material, it is still a hugely complex task to tell the story of a city of 5 million souls over 6 years of warfare.